July 7, 1807. A raft in the middle of the Niemen River. Napoleon Bonaparte and Tsar Alexander I hug, toast, and carve up Europe. The Treaty of Tilsit. Peace. Friendship. Eternal alliance. Within 5 years, Napoleon invades Russia with 600,000 men. July 14, 2015. 7 nations sign the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA. Diplomats call it a breakthrough. Peace. Inspections. Sanctions lifted. Within 3 years, President Trump withdraws. Maximum pressure begins. 2 treaties. 2 breakups. Same question, were these men free to choose, or were they pushed by forces they never saw? Tolstoy says leaders are not masters of history. They are slaves of history. And once you understand that, you stop worshipping the throne and start watching the tide. Here is how we are taught history. A king decides. An emperor orders. A president tweets. Soldiers march. Wars start. Borders change. Napoleon wanted Russia, so he invaded. Trump wanted a better deal, so he killed the JCPOA. Cause. Effect. Decision. Action. Tolstoy calls this a lie. A dangerous, flattering lie. Because what actually happens? 1,000,000 soldiers march east for 1,000,000 different reasons. Generals argue about mud. Orders arrive 3 hours late. Men freeze, starve, fire at ghosts. And after the slaughter, historians write, Napoleon invaded Russia because he was ambitious. Do you see the violence in that sentence? It erases every frozen corpse, every terrified peasant, every random accident. It turns chaos into a story starring one man. Tolstoy says the leader is not the playwright. The leader is the foam on top of the wave. And the wave moves itself. What is power? Not a magic spell. Not a switch in the Oval Office. Power is a chain of consent. Napoleon says march. 600,000 men march. Why? Not because they fear him. Most have never seen him. They march because their sergeant marches. The sergeant marches because the lieutenant marches. All the way down to the private, who marches because he doesn't want to look like a coward. Break the chain anywhere, and the order collapses. The Iran deal held for 3 years not because America is powerful. It held because Germany, France, Britain, Russia, and China all consented to enforce it. When Trump withdrew American consent, the chain broke. Napoleon did not destroy the Treaty of Tilsit alone. The peace was already dying when he signed it. Trump did not destroy the Iran deal alone. The deal was already a corpse propped up by one administration's will, waiting for a president willing to stop pretending. 2 men. Same war. Opposite brains. Napoleon, 43 years old, Emperor of Europe, sleeps 4 hours a night, micromanages everything, believes his will shapes reality. Kutuzov, 67 years old, fat, one eye, reads French romance novels during war councils, shrugs and says, "We shall see." You have never heard of Kutuzov. Let me fix that. Kutuzov was the Russian general who refused to fight Napoleon's way. He retreated. He waited. He let winter and the Russian people destroy the French army while he did almost nothing. Tolstoy's hero. Because Kutuzov knew something Napoleon never did. You cannot control a battle. Orders arrive too late. The chaos does what it wants. So Kutuzov did one thing, he watched the spirit of his men. And when he saw they would not break, he said, "Victory is ours." Now ask yourself. In the Iran deal withdrawal, who was Napoleon and who was Kutuzov? Trump was Napoleon, frantic, certain, tweeting, believing his will could reshape the Middle East. Where was the American Kutuzov? Nowhere. Because American politics rewards performance, not patience. Napoleon burned an army because he could not stop performing genius. Trump may have done the same. Tolstoy wrote a formula. Force equals mass times spirit. Mass is easy: soldiers, guns, supplies, geography. Generals love mass. Napoleon spent hours on maps. The Iran deal's mass was sanctions, inspectors, multilateral backing. But spirit is the wild card. Spirit is the desire to fight, to endure, to refuse to break. At Borodino, the French had more mass. More soldiers, more cannons, better positions. By any rational measure, Napoleon should have crushed the Russians. But the Russians had more spirit. They were not fighting for Napoleon's glory. They were fighting for their homes, their families, their dirt. And here is the brutal truth: no general can manufacture spirit. You cannot order it. You cannot buy it. Now apply this to Iran. The United States had more mass. Bigger economy, stronger military, more allies. By any rational measure, maximum pressure should have worked. But Iran's spirit did not break. Because the regime framed the nuclear program as national pride. Because sanctions hurt ordinary families, who blamed America, not their own government. Because a nation under siege rallies around its flag, even a flag you hate. Trump could not manufacture Iranian surrender. No president could. Spirit is not a lever. It is a fire. And you cannot command fire to go out. September 14, 1812. Napoleon rides into Moscow. He has dreamed of this moment for years. The ancient capital. The heart of Russia. He expects a delegation, keys to the city, a surrender ceremony. Instead, silence. The city is empty. 300,000 people have fled. No officials. No priests. No flowers. Just an old man in a basement who shrugs and says, "Gone." Napoleon's victory is a hollow shell. He holds the ashes of a capital that no one defends and no one surrenders. May 2018. Trump announces the withdrawal from the Iran deal. He expects European allies to follow. He expects Iran to beg for a new deal. He expects maximum pressure to produce maximum leverage. Instead, Europe stays in the deal. China buys Iranian oil. Iran enriches uranium. No capitulation. No surrender. No keys to the city. Just silence. And then escalation. A hollow victory is not victory. It is just a longer road to defeat. That night, Moscow burned. Who started it? Russians say arson. French say accident. Tolstoy says it does not matter. A wooden city, abandoned by its people, occupied by careless soldiers smoking pipes and cooking stolen food, of course it burned. No one ordered the fire. It was a biological inevitability. The Middle East after the Iran deal withdrawal, did anyone order the escalation? No. But a tanker was attacked. A drone was shot down. A general was assassinated. A passenger plane was shot down by accident, by panic, by a missiler who thought he saw an enemy. No single decision caused the fire. But the fire happened anyway. Tolstoy's lesson is brutal. When you abandon a treaty, you do not control what comes next. You only drop a spark on dry wood. The fire decides where it goes. Let me show you why Napoleon failed and Kutuzov succeeded. 4 differences. First, operating paradigm. Napoleon believed he wrote the script of history. Kutuzov accepted the flow of necessity. Second, pre-battle focus, Napoleon drafted intricate, useless tactical maps. Kutuzov slept through councils and focused only on the spirit of his men. Third, relationship to control, Napoleon frantically issued ignored orders from afar. Kutuzov accepted he could not control the chaos. Fourth, result, Napoleon destroyed his own army. Kutuzov preserved his. Now run Trump through this matrix. Operating paradigm, he believes he is the sole author of American foreign policy. Pre-battle focus, maximum pressure, sanctions, tweets, threats, but did he ever focus on the spirit of the Iranian people? Relationship to control, frantic. Constant announcements. Constant reversals. And the result is still being written. But the early evidence looks like Napoleon. An army that marched into emptiness. A policy that won nothing. Let me tell you about the most beautiful image Tolstoy ever wrote. Pierre Bezukhov, rich, lost, searching for meaning, is a prisoner of the French. He has seen men executed. He has lost everything. One night, freezing in a barn, he dreams of an old man holding a living globe made of drops of water. Each drop moves. Each drop tries to expand. But as they expand, they merge with other drops. And as they merge, they shrink. The globe is always changing. This is life, the old man says. Pierre wakes up. He looks at the stars. He laughs. Not a bitter laugh. A joyful laugh. Because he finally understands. He is a drop. You are a drop. Trump is a drop. Napoleon is a drop. The Iranian supreme leader is a drop. Each tries to expand. Each crashes into others. But the whole, the great ocean of being, is not controlled by any single drop. It is controlled by the movement of all drops together. This is not nihilism. It is liberation. Because if you are just a drop, you do not have to save the world. You just have to move. Honestly. Gently. In the direction of love. Pierre found his purpose not in glory, not in power, but in a barn, in a dream, in a metaphor. The purpose is not to control the globe. The purpose is to be a good drop. After Moscow burned, the French army retreated. But the retreat was not a march. It was a nightmare. Because the rules of war had dissolved. Russian peasants, not soldiers, not generals, not the Tsar, attacked French supply lines with axes and pitchforks. No uniforms. No orders. No surrender accepted. Tolstoy calls it the mass club rising in all its terrible and majestic strength. After the Iran deal withdrawal, the United States faced not the Iranian army, but a swarm of proxies. Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria. No single enemy. No front lines. No peace treaty to sign. Just 1,000 small cuts. The partisan war did not defeat Napoleon's army by itself. But it bled the army white. The proxies did not defeat the United States. But they made victory impossible. When the rules dissolve, the swarm wins. Not because it is stronger. Because it is everywhere. By November 1812, Napoleon's Grand Army no longer existed. Not defeated in a single battle. Disintegrated. 600,000 men had crossed the Niemen in June. Fewer than 50,000 limped back in December. What destroyed them? Not Russian generals. Cold. Starvation. Disease. Exhaustion. And the complete collapse of discipline. Soldiers abandoned their weapons. Ate their horses. Fought each other for raw meat. After the maximum pressure campaign, Did Iran disintegrate? No. But American influence in the Middle East suffered a different kind of disintegration. European allies distrusted Washington. Iraq voted to expel American troops. The Taliban gained confidence in Afghanistan. Not a single defeat. 1,000 small disintegrations. Tolstoy's law applies to armies and alliances alike. When the spirit breaks, the mass collapses. Here is the metaphor that explains everything. A ship cuts through the ocean. Behind it, a wake spreads across the water. For a long time, sailors believed the wake pushed the ship forward. That is absurd. The ship moves because of its engines, its sails, the wind, the current. The wake is simply the mark of movement already completed. Tolstoy says leaders are the wake. Not the engines. Not the wind. Not the current. The wake. We look at Napoleon crossing the Niemen and say, he caused the invasion. We look at Trump tearing up the Iran deal and say, he caused the escalation. But the invasion was already in motion. The escalation was already inevitable. The leader simply marks the spot where the ship has already passed. This is not determinism. It is humility. The wake does not steer the ship. It only follows. And the sooner we stop worshipping the wake, the sooner we can understand the real forces that move the world. Here is what Tolstoy wants you to remember. History is not a chess game. It is a tapestry. Millions of threads. Millions of weavers. No single thread controls the pattern. Napoleon is one thread. Trump is one thread. You are one thread. The Iranian soldier is one thread. The French private who froze outside Smolensk is one thread. Some threads are bright. Some are dark. Some break. Some are knotted. But the tapestry only becomes visible when you stop staring at a single thread and step back to see the whole. The Treaty of Tilsit was a thread. The Iran deal was a thread. Napoleon's invasion was a thread. Trump's withdrawal was a thread. Each seemed decisive in the moment. Each was just a stitch. Tolstoy calls the final pattern the inevitable harmony. Not a harmony we create. A harmony we discover. Like musicians who realize, mid-concert, that they have been playing the same symphony all along, just different parts. Stop looking for the one person who will save you. Stop blaming the one person who ruined everything. That is the old history. The history of kings and presidents and great men. The new history, the true history, belongs to the swarm. To the drops. To the millions of ordinary people who, day after day, choose kindness over cruelty, patience over panic, love over hate. That is the only force that has ever changed the world. And it is the only one that ever will.